Yemi, how you doing?
I'm
You
good,
well?
so yeah, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Yeah, real
And
pleasure, and congratulations on bringing Black is Beautiful to
thank
market.
you, thank you.
I feel like the name of the film is going to draw people in,
Mm,
and I think once they watch it, they will recommend it, and
yeah,
it's that good.
thank
All
you.
right, it's that good. I wanted to kind of spend this time with you to learn about yourself and connection to the project, as opposed to
Yeah,
delving into the project. I think people are going to do that for themselves.
yeah,
So when did you first come across, the name Kwame Brathwaite, and what did that first encounter do to you?
yeah. So I think I came across Kwame's work in maybe I don't know. I want to say 2021, 2022. I always knew the name, but I think a friend of mine bought the book for me a couple of years before I started working on the film. And then one of the producers sort of like messaged me and said, would I be interested in hearing about a project about him? And I was just like, oh, that's so funny because I know him, I know his work, and yeah, like that was the foundation of like where this all started. And I guess from that initial conversation, it was like meeting Kwame Jr. And then we sort of like entered a period of sort of like paid development where we're sort of like developing the film, and that was like me going to California to meet Kwame Jr., having a look at the archive, and just getting an understanding of who Kwame Jr. is as a man, but also who his father was. Um,
So what?
I didn't get a chance to meet him because he passed away in
Yeah,
in April 2023.
mm.
So we started production, well, development on this film in the August. But it's testament to the family because it was still, his transition and his passing was still very raw for them
Mm.
when we started development on this film. So yeah, that was pretty much where it all started.
But when did you realize it was a story that was not just worth telling, but one that you had to
I think that I I think this all charts back to sort of like when I was like 17 years old, and I've always been obsessed with America. I've always been obsessed with New York. I'm a hip hop head. I always wanted to have some sort of close proximity to New York. And I remember going to sort of like Harlem when I was like 17 years old because I'd been obsessed with the Harlem Renaissance and this sort of, this collection of like creatives and sort of like artists, whether that be Langston Hughes or sort of like Claude McClay or Zora Neale Hurston, like, just I was just like, that sounds like a utopia. I need to go and see that
I mean, it
place.
was right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I was like, I need to go and see that place. And I think that was very much that rooted me in sort of like a love for like Harlem. And so when I became understanding of Kwame's story, that was his stomping ground. It was just, I came to this story with an enthusiasm and with a sort of like an understanding of what Harlem was and what it represented. And I kind of thought, well, that's not everything, but that is sort of like a good jumping off point for understanding. It's a good entry point into him and his
Mm.
legacy and sort of like the work that he did there. So it always felt like it's a no-brainer.
It was like synergistic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
I
It
get
just
it.
felt like it
Yeah.
was a no-brainer. Like I wrote my dissertation on the Black Panther Party as well when I was at university. So they're just like, you have these moments in your life that you're just like, oh, okay, like you've got experience of that, and then it all just neatly aligns, and then you're like, oh wow, all of that was to sort of like,
For this.
for this,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's it.
The phrase, black is beautiful
Mm,
means so much to so many. It's become iconic,
mm,
but for Kwame, it was revolutionary.
mm,
What did the phrase mean to you before
mm.
and after?
That's a good question. I think it always meant to me like pride. I can't see beyond that, and sort of like self-love and sort of like self-reflection and yeah, but like empowerment. Do you know what I mean? I think they tell us a lot about ourselves, but like I think that phrase was always reaffirming. And I think that, you know, this film is primarily about black women,
Mm.
and I think as a father of two black girls, I think it's always been very close to home.
How old are you girls?
One is 8 and one is 11 months.
All right.
Yeah,
So both impressionable ages, right?
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
The film, I thought was a love letter to legacy,
Yeah,
long overlooked.
yeah,
And I wondered if you felt a sense of pressure, responsibility in kind of bringing Kwame's voice into the present.
Yeah,
Mm.
like there it was pressure, but I think it was a pressure that was we all shared. You
Right.
know, like an amazing team of people made this film, from Joanna the producer, like Misfits the production company, Otto the editor. You know, there was just there were people that took it very seriously, that we have to get this right.
Mm.
It's too important to get wrong. And I think also, like, we made this film in collaboration with the family. You know, so you know, it was a creative collaboration, but we always understood sort of like our mission and our role in this, right? So there was a sense of pressure, but I think it wasn't just all on my shoulders. I think it
Right.
was something that we all shared,
Yeah.
and like, you know, I think from a creative perspective, it was just a free flowing, you know, dialogue and ideas amongst the team. So we all felt it, but I think we rose to that challenge, right? And I think that we weren't going to get it wrong.
500,000 photos.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even begin to curate that visually and emotionally overwhelming legacy into one cohesive cinematic narrative?
It
Where does one start?
it didn't. It was something that spanned over 2 years, because the thing about Kwame's legacy is that it's a living, breathing archive, right? Um, Sorry, the thing about his archive, it's living and breathing
Yeah.
in the sense that the family is still going through and discovering what's in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that, yeah, it was just a process that didn't stop. Even the last day of the edit, there were some pictures that came through, and they were the pictures of Kwame Jr., Ndola, and Sokolo in Harlem when Nelson Mandela was there giving the speech,
Right.
right? So we found those pictures on the last day of the edit.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. So that's how big this
Yeah.
archive is, right? It's like the family are sort of like doing their best to kind of like wade through it, and they did the best. They what they got us were gems. Like there's pictures in the film that no one has ever seen before, right? So yeah, it was just a constant sort of like, you know, work in progress that never stopped up until the last day of the edit.
I mean, you mentioned that image, but there must have been others that kind of stopped you in your tracks,
Yeah.
or maybe particularly hit you the hardest.
Yeah.
What stirred you the most, and why?
I think it was, for me, it was always when he was working at the Apollo,
Right.
right? And seeing the pictures that he took of like seminal, sort of like iconic artists, you know, at the beginning of their careers, whether that be sort of like Marvin Gaye, like the little Stevie pictures. Like, he wasn't even Stevie Wonder at that point; he was little Stevie, and like Kwame was there. Like, I think it's just the range, you know. Like, there's like Spike Lee, there's the Jacksons, obviously. I think it was the music pictures
Right.
that because I'm such a music fan, I think those were the ones that were always like, this is like Miles Davis. Those were the ones that I always connected to, because I was just like, he was around these people, you know?
It's interesting you say that, because I thought the film gave space to ordinary Black people,
100%.
not just the icons.
Mhm.
And I wondered how intentional that was from your perspective to make sure that balance was found, because Africa was fascinating for that.
It was very intentional. I think that Kwame lived many lives and he wore many hats. Yeah, and he never stayed in like one lane. You know, he was sort of like photographing like normal Black people in Harlem, and then he was sort of like taking pictures for album covers, and then he was sort of like hanging out with Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley, and then he was sort of like going to Africa and sort of like documenting. He was just a man of many, you know, lives and trades, and he never stayed still. So it was really important for us to document all of that, you know, and not just focus on, you know, the sort of like, you know, the tempo, the big things that he's known for.
Do you see the documentary as an act of justice, resistance, or something else entirely?
No, I think it's I think it's significant in this time, because I think there's a concerted effort to erase Black contribution, right, and sort of diminish Black contribution. So it's important that this film exists because it's a record of his contribution to what we all know today. And I think it's also a marker. I think one of the things that we always thought about Kwame's work is that it's pretty timeless. Like, you can look at those pictures and think that they were taken yesterday, but then I think you could also trace the aesthetic of his craftsmanship to sort of like lots of stuff that we have today.
Signature, almost.
Exactly, right? So you can sort of like connect the dots in that way. So yeah, I think it's resistance, it's legacy, it's all of those things.
I want to know how making this film changed the way you see your own identity as a Black artist and storyteller, if indeed it did.
Yeah, no, I like. I don't. It's a really good question. I don't think I don't think it changed me. I just felt like a little bit of a custodian for for parts of this story. In a alongside all the other people that I made the film with, like, we felt like custodians. We felt like it was our responsibility to get it right. I don't think it changed me. I just I just always felt deeply privileged to have the opportunity to be working on the film every single day. That's what it felt. It like gratitude and privilege to kind of like have the opportunity to tell this story. I think that never left me. Do you know what I mean? Even when like days were hard or sort of, you're away shooting, you haven't seen your family for a long time, it always was like, this is a privilege to be doing this work. So that's something that, that we always held on to.
To your point previously, how do you think the embrace of Kwame's work, by celebrity nowadays, Rihanna, Beyonce, Alicia Keys, how do you think that level of attention has shifted public perception on Kwame's work?
I think it's elevated it, right? I think if Gabrielle Union and sort of like Dwayne Wade have got, signature Kwame pieces in their house, then that's and they go out and they talk about his work and his legacy, that only elevates and sort of like produces awareness about him and his contribution. So it's amazing. Every sort of like higher profile name in our film is connected to that family, and they're connected to that work, and they collected the work. Those, Jesse Williams, like Tyler Mitchell, Gabrielle Union, Jesse Williams, they weren't just plucked out of air. Like, they are connected to that family and they support the work. So it made sense for them to kind of like be incorporated into the film to kind of like share that. But we knew that that would elevate it, and it's sort of, I think, whenever you've got a story that people don't know about, but then you sort of like know the people that are talking about this story, you're like, what? How did I miss that? If Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade know this man in this work, how did I miss it? So, it just elevated the work.
How do you want if there was a young Black kid leaving the cinema, having taken in this documentary, how would you want their discovery of Kwame's work told through your lens? How would you want them to receive that?
I think it's about sort of inspiration. Like, if Kwame did a lot of work in his lifetime, and I think it wasn't always easy. As you see through the film, he made sacrifices, and I think that's important for anybody to sort of like acknowledge that it's not always going to be a straight road. There are going to be speed bumps, and I think Kwame experienced those speed bumps, but he persevered, and he never sort of deviated too far away from his mission. And I think there's a life lesson in that for all of us, in the sense that it's never going to be a straight road, but like, if you continue and you persevere, then that thing that you want to do, you will eventually get there.
I got to the end and I wondered if he finished his career a happy man. Given the way that it was discovered, some of the archive has been discovered and just still being discovered, as we've learned today. I wondered if he finished that career a happy man, because he clearly found a fulfillment in the solace of being in that special place that enabled him to deliver this year after year after year after year without anyone knowing or being aware of just how vast, a collection of images and experiences he'd had. And I just wondered if he died a man who felt fulfilled.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think he did.
Mm.
I think he did. I think Kwame Jr. would be able to tell you more, but I think he did. I think, you know, in the film you see his last assignment, you know, and he's there with a camera, and he's doing the thing that he loved. And you see in the film the Aperture Awards where, you know, he's acknowledged in that way. I think it, you know, he got his flowers, and he continues to get those flowers through this film. So I think he did. I think his legacy is safe.
Thanks for your time, Yemi. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you, bro.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Bless that, man.
Thank you.